My voice is going a little bit, so I apologize. The name of this story is called The Tumbler. I remember first being struck by his eyes. They bored through me. Brown, scared, and wide. After standing at his bedside for a few minutes, I was tempted to turn around and see if there was something behind me that he was looking at. But I knew that there wasn't. I tried to lock eyes with him, but each time they just escaped from me as they opened, closed, and explored the room. But my real interest was with his brain. Smashed, bloody, in pieces. As he sustained successive blows from the wooden bat, another chip fell off of his head. I wonder how the perpetrator felt. Was it satisfying? Did he wince the first time he heard the crack of the skull? Did my patient scream? Did he beg for mercy and yet the hitting continued? Or did he look at his assailant with those eyes? Is that what made the beating stop? The attacker saw that look. Now my patient lies in this bed. His trauma is hidden from view, obscured by hair, blood pooling, cerebral spinal fluid leaking out of his deaf ear. All the while, those eyes are darting back and forth, afraid that someone might discover just how broken he was. I moved slowly, aware that those eyes could flash at any moment and I would be gripped by fear, afraid he may lunge at me. But I found myself comforted by the fact that his life would betray him. He could only lay there, rubbing his thumb and middle finger together. The skin of his middle finger was broken and raw. He eventually relocated his mindless switch to his penis. I watched him for a moment. Was I supposed to say something to him? Was it really masturbation? There were no moments of pleasure. He couldn't even muster an erection. Embarrassed for being a voyeur to his intimate and pathetic moment, I tiptoed out of the room, leaving him to his public humiliation. After all, this was only one of a handful of other less than appropriate actions he had engaged in that night. When I returned, I was greeted by a moist, foul-smelling bed. In that moment, I didn't care how sick, limited, and impaired he was. I wanted to teach him a lesson, leave him in this soiled bed, show him that he couldn't ignore my requests all night, that he couldn't reach for my breast when I tried to feed him, that he couldn't simulate masturbating in bed and think that I would stand for it. You must push the button when you have to go to the bathroom, I scolded loud enough so that the one good ear would have no doubt about what I was saying. You cannot continue to pee in your bed. You said that you can feel when you have to go, so I need you to let us know when you need to use the urinal, I continued. I was speaking in too many words for his fractured brain to understand, and he just looked at me, confused. His head rolled to the side, disaffected and listless. I walked out of the room to get fresh linen. I could feel the redness creeping up my neck. What's wrong with you? Sure, I knew the medical diagnosis, but that's not what was chipping away at me. No. What is it about you that has infected my inside? Is that how you exercise your power? I grabbed the sheet with all of my strength. I could feel the tears stinging my eyes. I couldn't go back into that room. Not yet. My thoughts wandered to my post-clinical plans, and I could feel myself relaxing. This patient was getting to me, but I knew that I would not be doomed to be trapped in his body, nor would I be held captive by those eyes for much longer. After a few more minutes of deep breathing and self-talk, I re-entered the room with a sense of calm and composure. But as soon as I looked at this bulging mass of flesh, my mind was racing, and my patience all but disappeared. Where were my colleagues? How am I supposed to move this 180-pound weight by myself when he refuses to cooperate? Okay, I need to change your sheets, I chirped pleasantly, forcing myself to mask my frustration. Do you think you can help me so that we can get you dried and cleaned up? He looked at me. Should I know you? His eyes seemed to say. I could see him searching, but there was no sense of recognition. His head flopped to the left, and the rest of his body refused to budge. I rolled his dead weight across the bed, shoved the sheets underneath his rash-covered butt. With large, swirling motions, I rubbed lotion all over his back and legs. At first I rubbed hastily, but as I felt his warm flesh become softer, I moved slower, more deliberately. Does this feel good? I'm sorry it's cold, but I'll rub it in, and it will start to feel warmer. Silence. Not even a grunt suggesting that he heard me. I moved to the other side of the bed, forced him over again, and pulled the sheets through with all of my anger. I finished by tucking him in and stroking his hair. His skin smelled like baby powder, his breath like Listerine and milk. But no matter how much perfume and how much antiseptic I doused on him, The fruity and musty scent of a traumatic brain injury permeated his bed. No amount of care was going to mask that odor. As I pulled off my gloves, I heard a slurred, hoarse voice. "Allie, your question?" Startled, my response was delayed. "Yes?" He looked straight at me, his gaze fixed on my face. "Thank you." It was barely audible, and it was said as one word instead of two. I didn't know what he was saying other than the literal words. Was he grateful that I cleaned all of the dirt under his nails, that I changed his sheets 4 times during the shift, that I fed him, that I bathed him, that I did not shudder when I touched him, that I didn't give up on him and force him to lay in that bed of mess? It didn't matter if it was all of these, one of them, or none. After such an emotional night, I was just grateful for the recognition. You're welcome, I answered.